the trial. If it goes wrong, that's okay. Hello, students. 开课了. Today we are going to talk about how to share ideas without sounding certain. Let me give you some background on this in a bit. So today we're going to practice how to share ideas without sounding certain, without sounding weak, and without sounding defensive. This topic comes from my student Yuan You. Yuan You told me that he is a senior engineer, very good at what he does, but the issue is sometimes when his manager or his manager's manager asks him for some input, he is afraid of saying something and then, let's say, getting reprimanded for saying something incorrectly. So the idea is that he wants to share, he wants to give input, but he doesn't want the input to come off as sounding like this is objectively the way and that he is 100% certain that's the way. So that's kind of the background to today's lesson. So the key idea here is to sound confident and still sound like you're flexible. Flexible. I'm teacher Lulu, by the way. Some students just call me Lulu 老师, or you can call me just Lulu. That's fine too. What are you worried about? So in Yuan You's case, he is worried about being held accountable for things he said when he is only suggesting and not saying with certainty. So in this class, we are going to identify the problem and then get familiar with a 3-layer structured approach on how to do it, how to say it. 你们就可以套句子 so that you can handle situations like that without getting blamed. Okay, let's begin. So the first thing here we need to keep in mind is that confidence, let me make this a little bit bigger. Confidence does not equal certainty. That's what you have to keep in mind first. I wish I can just make this equal sign. Like imagine there's a cross over the equal sign. Actually, I can find it. Let me find this. I think it's important. Okay, cool. Okay, there we go. Confidence does not equal certainty. That's super important. I think Americans, one of the things that we are known for is being super confident. Even when we're not sure what we're doing, sort of this like fake it till you make it. And no, I don't think it's always the best thing to do, but I'm just letting you know that, you know, Americans, we are known for showmanship. So just because you sound confident doesn't mean you're certain. So keep that in mind. And secondly, when you share ideas, what actions are you worried about? So a little bit more on what we just talked about here. What are you worried about? And he shared with me how he is worried that, you know, if he shares something and it's not true, he might get punished for saying the wrong thing. And then also think about this. Have you ever sounded too confident or too unsure? Can you recall a time in your life where you sounded overly confident or overly uncertain? And if this was a one-on-one private teaching class, by the way, I do that. That is my specialty, one-on-one individualized 针对你的需求的英文课. And I do that. So if it was one of those classes, I'll give you some time. You will discuss your pain points, and then I will give you a summary of what you just told me. So I would be saying, Okay, so based on what you told me, the goal is, so for 缘由, the goal is to sound open, but not absolute. And I'll write that here for us. Yes, Yuan Yo has been learning with me for about 4 months now. He has been doing very well. I see a lot of progress in him. Very proud of him. He is a good student. So here is another core concept you need to keep in mind. It's another thing that's like, these things need to be in your subconscious for you to act in a way that makes these things in your subconscious align with your actions. So for instance, opinion does not equal fact. So what I'm saying is that this is an English class, but it's also helping you think more like a Westerner, an American. Yeah, maybe partially it's to help you upgrade your language, which we will certainly do. But another part is sort of like your own reconstructing of your mind, like realizing that just because you share an opinion in a confident manner does not mean what you're saying is absolute or certain. So keep that in mind. So because the opinion is not a fact, we need to keep in mind that native English speakers, especially us Americans, we share our opinions very clearly. Okay, and that will come into play in a little bit. So now I'm going to teach you guys the core framework. I love frameworks. I am a teacher with very structured teaching styles, formulas, strategies, because I believe that if you know a framework, the scaffold, you are able to take that and then use it in real life situations. So it's like actually useful. So here is the 3-layer structure. So here's the formula. We're going to do layer 1, layer 2, and then layer 3. And this, if this was during class, I would ask a student, can you imagine, take a guess what these 3 layers would be about? And then I'll give him some time to answer. Okay, so now we will begin. Okay, so layer 1 is to signal subjectivity. I will ask him, what does subjectivity mean? And if they don't know, sometimes I would say this in a different form. Like, okay, you don't know subjectivity, but do you know subjective? And sometimes it just takes that little bit of a hint, then they'll be like, okay, yeah, subjective, yes, I've heard it, and then they know. But sometimes they don't, so I'll give them an example. I would say something like, well, we have something objective, the opposite would be subjective, and then they would get it, like, oh. And if they still don't, I can give them a sentence using the word subjective, and if they still don't, I would tell them just to take a wild guess. And then if they still don't, I would say this in Chinese. So yes, I can help you with Chinese. 可以用中文帮你，但是 it's kind of like the last line, or it's kind of like I push you in English. And if you still can't, yes, I'll help you in Chinese, of course. So signal subjectivity. It means that you are signaling that it's an opinion. And then I will teach my student some phrases that he can say to signal subjectivity. So I'll give some examples. And this is where I always see Yuan Yo write these down, because when he writes it down, I guess he uses for his future real life situations. So you can say, from my perspective, from my perspective, one way to think about this is One way to think about this is my current understanding is the. So you see here, I just gave you guys 3 back to back, but in a real class, I would give you time in between each, and then we would workshop the answers together, because, you know, teaching is a 2-part process. It's the teacher and the teaching, which is the collaboration of the student and the teacher. And then I would say something like, repeat after me. I would say, you know, from my perspective, the student repeats. I say, one way to think about this, my current understanding is, and then I say, you know what, you give it a try. And sometimes this is where I make little adjustments that I truly believe my ear is so good. Again, pick up little tiny things, like little details, like intonation. So if he's like, from my perspective, I would be like, no, from my perspective. It goes down, descends, and then he will repeat. So we workshop on that for a little bit, and then I would tell him to give me some examples. I would say, pick one, and then tell me a real life example you would use that with. And he would say something like, from my perspective, this project is over my capacity. And I would say, great, fantastic. I really believe in words of encouragement. You will see a lot of this. I believe in my students, and I believe in positive reinforcement. Okay, let's go to layer 2. So think of this as like building a house, like brick 1, brick 2. So this is the second brick. What you need to do here is you need to make sure no details yet. Comment below if you can relate to this. Basically, what this means is that you are very good at sharing details. When there's a problem, you immediately say like, problem, you're just like ABC, and you're very specific. That's not a bad thing. It means you are an advanced English student. However, you cannot say too much details right now, especially this is a professional setting. You save the details for the second page. Think about it this way. Back in the day when people used to fax, you can still fax today, it's just not as common. The first page is the cover page. It tells you what this fax is about. And then the second page and the third page is what the materials are, the content of this message. So keep that in mind. So layer 2, no details yet. I know you want to say the details. I know you want to say, you know, Jimmy did this and the project ABCDEFG got messed up because of this. Don't say details yet. So don't say details. Sometimes not doing something is difficult. No details. So instead of details, you can give categories or labels. And I have a separate class on this, by the way. Just search category or label. So here's an example. We might want to reconsider the timeline. See, that's nice because that's brief. We might want to reconsider the timeline. That's nice. That's nice. That's brief. I like it. Very nice. We might want to reconsider the timeline. Okay, then the boss asks why, and then you say the details. Another idea, another beginner, you can say, this approach could introduce some risk. If you can't remember the word introduce, no problem. Replace it with have. This approach can have some risk. No problem. Introduce is just a little bit more elegant. I always encourage my students to upgrade. So for example, yesterday I had a class with Rachel. She said, it's so cold. And I said, okay, upgrade the word cold. And then we workshopped that for a little bit. Cold can be severe. You can say the temperature is biting. You can say it's harsh. You can say it's frigid. There are many ways to upgrade your vocabulary. And that's something that you will for sure, as a student of mine, take away from my class for sure. I think I'm an excellent English teacher. Oh, whoops, it just disappeared. Let me put that back. Okay, here we go. Now we're on to level 3. the very last level here. Layer 3, level in layer 3. This is so fun. You need to open the door, dip your toes in. Okay, so let's review quickly. Layer 1, signal subjectivity. So let's call it frame it as a perspective. That's a nice name. Yeah. Frame it as a perspective. Layer 2, since there's no details, I'll just say state the idea briefly. And then layer 3, for opening the door, let me call it invite collaboration. By the way, I've read a lot of negotiation books, business books. I teach business English predominantly. The key here is the more you have the other party invest into your idea, the more likely you're going to get a yes, a big fat yes. So invite collaboration. So you're going to open the door just a little bit here. And when you do that, you remove certainty. And also think about it this way. If they are collaborating, if they introduce some of their ideas, and let's say this idea flops, hey, you cannot be blamed, at least not entirely, because it's also their idea. So it's both of your ideas now. So now you're no longer the one person with the bad idea. You're one of the two. So you'll, less blamed. Even if you get blamed, you won't get blamed. If you do this, you won't get blamed. Okay. Let me give you some wonderful, fantastic examples to invite collaboration. So you need to be like, but I might be missing something. But I might be missing something. I love the next one. It's short, simple, sweet. Sometimes those 3 S's are what we are looking for. Short, simple, sweet. Again, short, simple, sweet. Say this. Curious what you think. That's nice. That is asking the other person to tell me what you think, but it's like sweet and cute. Curious what you think. It's also no pressure. Curious what you think. It's not saying, can you tell me what you think? Because then it opens the door to say yes or no. But if you just say curious what you think, let them tell you what they think. And people love to tell you what they think. They love doing that. If you want to be a little bit more polite, you can say happy to hear your thoughts. So quickly, let's review what we just did. We just did the 3-layer framework. So layer 1, frame it as a perspective, signal subjectivity. Layer 2, state the idea briefly and no details yet. Layer 3, invite collaboration, open the door to remove certainty. Fantastic. Now we're going to do a drill. So I love doing drills with my students because I think some hands-on practice will make sure that the skills are drilled into their heads. I definitely liked that unintentional play on word. So let's do some contrast drills. What does that even mean? Okay, contrast. Sometimes I would pause and ask my student, what is a contrast drill? What is contrast? And they would say, contrast, like different? I would be like, yes, correct. Contrast drills are words or phrases that are opposite of each other or clearly different from each other. So we're going to do a drill called certain versus subjective. That's the name. Certain versus subjective. By the way, a lot of my students, if you're learning English, you might be saying this like certain, certain, but we are not British. We're American. Very important, you choose the English. You choose American English or British English. Do not choose British and American, getting 3 different tutors, and now your accent sounds even more strange. Just choose one. Certain, not certain. We don't say t in American English. So I'm going to tell the student a set of 2 ways to express something, and then I'm going to ask the student, can you identify which one sounds absolute? So some of these I have prepared. I will drop it here. Okay. Wow. Okay. So which one sounds more absolute? And I would tell the student to read and tell me. In this case, because it's the example, the answer is already on the board. The design is wrong sounds more absolute than something like, I think the design might cause long-term issues. Now I'll give them another example. I would be like, that's really good. Let me give you another example. So I would say, okay, which one sounds absolute? We should definitely refactor this. Or it might be worth considering a refactor. Let me put this on the board too. So before I do, take a guess. Tell me which one you think is more absolute. If you guessed number 1, you are correct. Should, definitely, way too strong. So I will be doing this for a couple more drills. If you're interested to hear more examples, you should totally sign up for a class with me. It would be fantastic. So now, after in real life class, we would thoroughly go over this and explain, and I would even explain the patterns. So for example, absolutes have absolute verbs like this, and then I would explain that something more soft and flexible have like these verbs, and my student will usually copy this and write it down, and then I give them a couple minutes or 20 seconds to take down their notes. And then we go more into category language, which I mentioned earlier. So if you remember what I said it's actually very easy for my students, especially the more advanced technical students, to be very strong at saying specific things, like specifically describing a situation. However, it is actually a lot more difficult to do the category language. So what this means is that stop jumping into the details before the categories. You need to start with the type in the beginning. So here are some very common categories of comments. We have concern. By the way, if you see all these blue, that's because I keep it on because I'm an author. As an author, it's much easier to write with all the blue marks. So I published a book on how to get into your dream school. Just type in NYU Shanghai prep school. It's linked below too. Buy the book. Very nice book. My students love this book. I love it too. I published 2 books since. The first one took so long to make, but I'm so glad I finished it. The first one gave me the confidence to do the second one. Like the first one I was too nervous about it. Like I like did 27 copies. The second one just one time and it did very well. Okay, so here are some common categories. We have concern, suggestion, question, observation. I would tell my student to read this, and then I would tell them to explain to me. I would say, identify in a simple way what each word means. And sometimes I would say, explain this to a 5-year-old. And sometimes if they explain the word with the word, so if they explain concern, like It's when someone has a concern about something. No, I would say, please say this again. Don't use the word that is the word. Use a different word. And then we would practice some starters. I love starters, as I tell you guys. Starters is things that you guys can use so you guys can make your own real life sentences in the real life future. Okay, so we have, I know this is not perfect, this dot here, but don't worry about it. So I would tell the student to read this. So please, I'll give you a couple minutes to read this. I'll give you 60 seconds to read this. Okay, so after you read this, I would then give you sort of like a conclusion. Again, something for your subconscious, because if your subconscious can remember this, you will be able to speak and act more the way you want, the way that more favors you. So when you name the category, listeners relax. Listeners know what they're looking for, what they're listening for. If you tell the manager immediately all the details, they're not only trying to pay attention to what you're saying, they're literally trying to discover, what are you trying to tell me? But if immediately you say one of these things, one concern I have is bandwidth limitations, and then you say all this stuff, then they know what they're listening for, so they can relax when they're listening for. They're not searching as they listen. They can give you their full attention. See? Boom. Okay. So finally, we're going to do one or two more things. By the way, this is typically a 50-minute to a 60-minute, 1 hour lesson. So this one with Yuan Yo is a 50-minute lesson. But usually it goes up to 60 minutes. I also teach up to 90. So it's 60, 50, or 90. It depends on your learning pace and style. If you're wondering, should I do the 50, 60, or 90? Really depends. The idea is that whichever one you do, the materials will be about the same. I might do more or less of something. I might be faster or slower at something. But however you learn the best is the style you should choose. Okay. Now we're going to do some controlled practice. And what that means is I'm going to give you a scenario, role play scenario that you can use, and this is super helpful for real life situations, because if you can do this when it happens in real life, when something similar happens in real life, you'll be like, oh yeah, I already did that with the teacher Lulu. I just remember one student calls me Miss Lulu, and that's fine too. I just feel like, I don't know. I don't know. Okay, controlled practice. So this is where I give you a scenario, and then you do the 3 layers that I just taught you before. So here's the scenario I'll put on the board. The deadline is tight and the model accuracy is still unstable. So then I would move my mouse. I would go here. I would say, look at this. Layer 1, layer 2, layer 3. Okay, I would point to this, and then I would give them the direction. I would say, please, Yuan Yo, please tell me the category, and then use a soft language, okay? And then also end with this open-ending invitation. Do this. Do the framing, do the brief idea, and do the open the door. Do those 3 things. And then he would tell me. I would listen. I would give feedback. I would tell him to say it again. He says it again. I listen. I give him more feedback. And he goes, oh, he writes some things down. And I say, do it again. And he does it again. Perfect. And the last iteration doesn't need to be perfect, but I bet you the last workshopped version is immensely better than the first version. So I will be correcting you live, and that's one of the best, most greatest advantages of having a one-on-one personalized tutor, is because I can give you live instructions and you can make immediate feedback. Immediate fixing. So imagine this immediate feedback. That was what I was saying earlier. Sometimes my mind is very fast. So this immediate feedback you received, you can immediately fix your mistakes. Imagine all your English mistakes can be seen and diagnosed by an expert and immediately slashed. That's so cool. That is so cool. Oh my gosh, that is so cool. So then I would give him also like an example target, or I have this like example target in mind. So as he says something, I would see if it sort of matches this. You can take a look and read this. I'll give you 20 seconds. Okay, so finally, this is the wrap up. Honestly, the wrap up can go anywhere from 1 minute to 5 minutes. It depends on my students. Some of my students are very clean at wrapping up. It's a simple back and forth. Yuanyou is one of those. Yuanyou is very good. We do a very quick wrap up, like 60 seconds. But some students, during the wrap up, they have a lot of questions. So I save at least 5 minutes for these students. So it depends on the kind of students. Depends how long the wrap up is. So I would just simply ask him, Yuanyou, can you please tell me what are the 3 parts? What are the 3 layers? And then he goes and look at his notes and he reads them to me. He says them to me. I'm like, yes, yes, yes. He usually tells me he feels much more confident, much more okay with this new knowledge that he has now. And I always love to give my students some reassurance at the end. Again, positive reinforcement. I tell them, I say, you don't need perfect English. You don't need perfect English. You just need clear signaling. And by doing this 3-layer structured response, you give a very clear signal to your manager. Bingo. Boom. Yeah. Okay, cool. So that's the gist of a class. Let's see. Yeah, that is the class for today. I hope you watching this on the internet gained some valuable information from this. If you did, please leave a comment and save this video, follow, watch it again, give it a thumbs up. That's all for today's video. That's all for today's class. Sharing ideas without sounding certain. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Teacher Lulu will say goodbye, peace out, and I'll see you again in the next video. Bye. 下课了，下课了. Wow, I'm so good at life. Okay, so what we're gonna do is first, one step at a time, we're going to end the meeting. And okay, cool. Save. Yes. Very important. Okay. And then the QuickTime. Is the QuickTime still going, bro?